Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here, and today I'm bringing you somebody I met at H&H Americas, Ali Dillingham from Yarn Market. Welcome to my channel.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So when I saw you first, I saw you a bunch of times at H&H Americas, and you were always doing live like that. And I thought, how adorable. And then we got to talk. And I learned that you only recently opened the yarn store. But before we go into the yarn store and the story of why you open it, tell me a little bit about yourself and how did you start with knitting?
Yeah, so I have been knitting. I learned when I was 8 or 9, and then picked it back up when I was in graduate school. And it's one of those I always teach friends and family and love sharing the craft. And so I just light up when I talk about it and I love it. And so we've had so many stores around us close, and I feel like local yarn shops are just one of those things that share joy in a community and bring people together. And so I really wanted to have an LYS in my community. And so I felt a really strong drive. And sometimes when I'm driven, I just don't let something go. And so decided to take a chance and opened in January of 2024. But it's been fantastic. And so we're really big on classes because to me, I want to open the door to people who want to learn or expand on their skills. So we had over 100 knit and crochet classes last year.
Wow. In 6 months that you were open.
In the beginning, and we opened in January, so it's the entire year. But yeah, we have classes most every week.
Wow. Well, when I was thinking about local yarn stores, to me, there is like a bit of intimidation until very recently, like a year ago. So, 2 years actually already. Another local yarn store opened that felt like a family, and I've been spending every week there. Um, Tell me your experience with local yarn stores and what you loved about them and what you didn't love about them, and what was your vision for yours.
So as you saw in H&H, I tend to have that personality. Well, I'll just go into a room and ask questions and make sure that I'm kind of, if I want something, I'll ask for it. But I have lots of friends who I would teach, and I would say, go to a local yarn shop and support local. And they would come back and say, nobody said hi to me. Or I walked in the room and I felt like I was interrupting something.
Right.
And that made me so sad because I knew that there was a lot to offer. And there's so much experience and so much connection that you can find at a shop. And so a lot of them were choosing to shop online instead of going to a store. And so for me, the most important interaction is when you walk in the door and you see someone and you look at them and you have them feel like you said, it included and it's their space. And actually today we call it Flaunt It Friday. So today is the day where people walk in and we celebrate what they're making and what they're wearing. And so it's like a show and tell day. And I love it. And you cheer for them when they come in because it's so much time and effort to make something. Um, and I think also letting people know that it's okay and it's part of the process to make mistakes, and it doesn't need to be perfect, and you don't need to rip it as I'm working something back. It's okay to work it back. That's part of it. Um and you can modify things. Like all those things that I think people get worried about or might have fear. Trying to take that out of the equation. So that's what I wanted. I wanted some of those stories that I had heard from other people that they felt that or that they didn't see themselves in that space. I really wanted to take those barriers away.
One of the things that, like, when I talk to people who are considering opening yarn store, they have this vision of like they're gonna sit there and knit peacefully and like smile at people who come and pat on the sofa next to them and say, come knit with me. How is that like in real life? What's happening in the store?
I rarely knit. I sometimes bring my yarn just so it's my emotional support yarn, but I never take it out. And I laugh. I was teaching a Sophie scarf class last week and I wound my yarn and I thought, oh, I'm going to knit with them. No, it's still in a cake. Um, because I'm here as a resource. I'm not here to knit. I mean, I would love to knit and I go home and I knit and that's how I de-stress and it's still very much my form of relaxation and I still love it. But no, when I'm here, I'm trying to put pieces out or think through what are people making, what do I need to order. I did have a chair in the corner when I first opened in the window thinking, "Oh, I'll sit." The chair is now gone. There's no need for a chair by the window. But instead, the table, the where we do classes, is the centerpiece of the shop. And we do have chairs outside. And when it's nice outside this weekend, we had Crystal from Factory Girl Design was here. And so there was a couple moments where I was able to sit outside and knit with everybody. But it's part of and that's absolutely fine with me. I don't mind that. But I talked to other store owners before I opened, and 95% of them said, "You do know you're not going to be able to knit." Like, yeah, I was well aware of that when I opened.
Well, before you open, you probably had a vision for your store of like what yarns you can put in there. How did it change over a year? Like, was there any surprises what you thought like, oh, that's gonna sell like hotcakes that doesn't sell and stuff that you didn't expect does sell?
Yes, and I think it's been listening to who's coming in, what they're wanting to make, and it changes with the season. Like right now, it's cotton and it's DK and it's finger, like it changes by colors and fibers. Like it's constantly evolving, and it is a cozy space. But to me, that's fun because then it changes every week, and so people will come in and they're like, What's this week?" We have actually last week after H&H, we put up a new wall because I wanted to put the H&H yarn up. So yes, it's surprises, but it's not frustrating. I think all of us, I don't know about you, I find myself getting inspired with different patterns and with different yarns. So my own projects evolve.
Well, let's talk about H&H for a second. And for those of you guys who don't know what H&H, it's a trade show, so it's business to business. And I put complete recap of this year H&H so you can watch it after we're done with this interview on my channel. But as a store owner, what do you gain from going to H&H?
I'd say number one is the inspiration. There, as much as customers find inspiration walking into a yarn store, I think as a store owner, you find inspiration walking in and seeing designs and yarn and brand owners and content creators and designers. It's overwhelming, but in a good way. And I think seeing what's coming, being able to hear from the brands directly. I meet with reps, but sometimes you're hearing from one rep at a time, and it's not necessarily you can go from booth to booth and see next to one another. And it was fantastic. That was well worth the time, but it is. I was actually on the planning committee for it too. And we talked about it's time away from a store. So I think for store owners, it's this return on investment of you're paying staff to open your store or you're closing your store. Um, but for me, it's definitely worth going for everything that's gained.
Was there some product that you couldn't wait to get your hands on?
Yes, and I meant to bring it. Well, there were a few. I was so excited the entire time. Um, the whirl from Lemonwood, and I love Lemonwood, so I carry my Lemonwood around all the time. Do you have yours? Yes. And I have the minder behind me where it sits tabletop, but I usually just have my yarn with me all the time. So I always have the minder. And then did you see the whirl where you put this on and it spins?
Yeah, that was so cool.
So yes, I think, and I just love colors. I love seeing a new product, like a prototype was exciting. And then I know you also like the redesign bags, and that's always with me. Um,
Yeah,
so
that
we have,
was very popular booth during the show. Like a lot of people were swirling around there and looking at the bags, and they had some beautiful colors. They had this like very moody dark hunter green and the black and the natural colors. It was like really
and I'm
interesting.
seeing a lot of stores now posting about that. I don't know if you're seeing the same, like
Yeah.
they're getting their orders in. So that's fun too, to see kind of the aftermath of, okay, we all went, and then what products did people see? What products are people excited about? Um, so we're doing a pre-order of those bags, but I did go live a lot from H&H, but I think that also gave my customers a chance to see what was there. And since I wasn't here, to still see I was working, but getting things to bring back for them.
Yeah. I also love the new Chiago's square needles. I thought like those were amazing. And I actually was playing with them today. So I'm a huge Chiago fan. So to see something new was exciting for me.
So what are some of your favorite Chowu? The quads I'm excited about. Are there other Chowu products that you like?
So I got Forte and I liked the needles, but I disliked the cords of Forte.
I switched to the red when I use
Yeah,
them.
yeah, because they catching. I don't know. And I talked to the owners of Chiago about that. I was like, I have a complaint.
They're very good with feedback though.
I'm actually meeting probably like 90% of things on Chiago's. So I love the red cords and I have all of them. So now I even have quads.
Do you use the shorties too?
I'm not a huge fan of shorties because I'm not a sock knitter and I'm very good with magic loops. So like
Okay.
since magic loop became my friend, like shorties. I mean, I have a few, like I've tried them, but I use them as cable needles, believe it or not, instead of cable needles.
Oh, interesting. I use them for sleeves, and I love not having to, because magic I started with double point. So I can do magic loop, but I prefer just to go circular. And then I've been working on sock knitting, and I've gone through all the different options. And so I feel like shorties are my preferred way to do socks.
Well, one of your frequent customers is Caleb, who was also a star of Fiberchats a few years ago. So if you guys want to watch that interview, just I'll put the link in the description. How do you foster relationship with people like Caleb, right? Who is not what stereotypically believed to be a customer of the yarn store?
Yeah, Caleb moved here last year and came to visit local yarn shops. And so met him, and we've become good friends. And he actually made the sweater that I'm wearing. And that's been actually fantastic because the designer of this is Kimberly McLinden from Knit a Rainbow. And he knew her, and that was a new designer to me. So I really appreciate having kind of outside of ideas too, and that community of people coming in and saying, what patterns are you making? Who are you liking? As far as I know designers that get fed into my algorithm or that I see on Ravelry. But no, I really appreciate when he shares ideas too of what he's making. Um, and we do collaborations, which is fun. So I'm making another one of these because I like it so much. And I don't, and if you could see, um, he has fun as far as modifying patterns. So this pattern originally is the hidden butterflies all the way through, but
Mhm.
instead we use one of the independent dyers in the shop for the bottom. So I am making another one, but he knit the top portion and I am working on the bottom. And we've now learned how to match each other's gauge. So we switch it back and forth, and we know what needle size. We work on different needle sizes just because our gauge is different. But that gives me a chance too to explain to people, when they say, what size needles did you use? Like, well, it doesn't really matter needle size, it matters gauge. And to show, well, we started this and we can pass it back and forth because we know how to match gauge.
Right.
But yeah, it's just a very authentic. It evolves, and it's nice to find inspiration.
Well, when it comes to choosing what samples you're gonna make, a lot of people who come to yarn store, they want, those top 5 designers that we all know and love. And so they come and they ask for, the kit for petite knit and kit for hohi and what have you. Um, how do you think it's like your role to educate your consumers about other designers, less known designers, indie designers, somebody who just starting, and support them?
Yes, and also trying to think through, like right now we're doing Pride Yarn and taking donations for human rights campaign. So we're raffling off a design by Cheek and Regal Knits and saying, kind of looking at designers and their mission. So right now she's, I believe, donating 100% of her pattern designs to usually it is animal shelters. I don't know if that's what she's doing, but right now. But yeah, to me, it's also if you have a platform, how do you use that platform? If people know a lot of the major designers, but there's so many other talented designers who are also supporting good causes. So doing that and being aware of kind of, to me, kind of that social component too. So um, we're we're fortunate that we have a lot of designers and indie dyers in the area. So it's not all, it's also the designers and the indie dyers. Like there's all these different pieces that I try to bring awareness to.
How do you deal with difficult customers?
Honestly, I'd say most people that come are very patient because we're all making things with yarn. So for the most part, um, even when I'm training new team members, a lot of them are intimidated, especially like, oh, I can't figure this out, or it's taking me time. And what if people are waiting? Like most of these people, it takes them hours, days, and weeks to make something. They're fine waiting 5 minutes while we figure out the point of sale. So yeah, it's very rare that we have a difficult customer. I think the only time it's been an issue is we have a no returns policy, just because if fiber leaves, I don't know where it's been. I want to make sure it's the same quality when people are purchasing it. But we make that clear. And once we've said that, people understand. We also have started teaching people how to wind, which I think kind of surprises people, but that's part of the process. So we'll wind 1 or 2 skeins to get people started on a project, but after that we have a do-it-yourself winding station and have been teaching people how to wind.
And it's so much fun. It's actually not difficult at all.
And I think that's part of that intimidation factor of sometimes people are hesitant to buy hand dyed because what do I do with it? And so showing that and walking them through, we don't just put them on the white, we walk through it, but yeah, explaining the process.
Do you ever find yourself in the expectant role of an expert when you're not an expert in that specific question? And how do
Yeah.
you deal with that?
So I there is a running joke that I have bad eyesight, and it's very true. Um, I usually have glasses on top of my contacts when it's anything lighter than a DK weight. So when people come in and ask about a pattern, especially socks, I have this look of like, 1 moment, please. And then I look around the store like, is there a sock knitter in the building? Um, but I think being honest about that and people laugh, and I'm like, my background is I'm a speech language pathologist. And so when I would have a case and if I needed help, then I would refer out to a physical therapist or an occupational therapist. Or so I don't view that as a weakness. I view that as a strength as far as finding somebody who has that ability and not trying to tackle something that I might not have the skill set for. And then I feel like it builds the community too, because then somebody will have a conversation and then they become friends. And I think that's fantastic.
Well, one of the events that I visited at HH Americas was the State of the Industry presentation. And there was the panel of participants there, like some of the top industry professionals who were discussing the future of the industry and what's happening after Joanne closed and what happens with the tariffs and all of that jazz. How do you, and there was like a lot of uncertainty, and the only thing I took out of that we should wait and see and then figure out what happened. So there was no like immediate like proposals and plans of how to deal with the situation. How do you deal with the uncertainty of it all, with the uncertainty of this business?
It's a good question. I was hoping for more answers during that panel, to be honest. I've been transparent with through newsletters and through social as far as there might be a price increase, or I'm placing this order. It's the last order I can place before the price increase. You may want to purchase things now. It's emails every day right now with different companies. And there's a lot of vendors. I mean, that's also a challenge where we don't all order through one vendor. So hearing from different vendors on different prices increases. But I feel like most people are aware of it. And so it's not too scary. And people are supportive of their local yarn shops. So right now I feel like, especially with needles and hooks, people have been like, okay, I want to buy what I know I'm going to need because I know there may be a price increase. I've also been looking at other options, but I feel like for the most part, people want the products that they're familiar with. So I don't think that they're necessarily wanting to change, but it's me being communicating it and then listening to customers.
Are you looking into more local options? Like there is also a movement of like farm to table, so to say, or like, supporting local businesses. Like, are you looking into replacing some of the foreign merchandise with the local merchandise?
We have a good balance right now. So I'd say we're half half in the store. Um, which that's part of the reason why I named the shop a yarn market, because I love going to farmers markets and I feel like it's a way to showcase what's local and in the community. So when people come in, and I'm sure you do the same when you travel and you visit an area, you want to go to the local yarn shop and grab a souvenir and see what's special about that store. So we have a local wall and we have local authors, local designers, and local yarn. So that's we had that when we opened. So I have that balance right now. And if we need to go a little bit more on that, we can do that too.
Right. Do you have a vision for your store? Like you started, I'm sure it was like learn as you go, but now that you've been in the business for a year, like do you have a business plan? Do you think about like long term?
Yes, I would love to have more space. Um, and that comes with growth. To me, it's organic growth. And I tend to say be cautious. But especially given some of the uncertainties right now, I want to make sure I'm making good choices. Um, I would love to, right now, given the size of the shop, we have classrooms in the back that we use. I would like to have classes going on in the store and some more open stitch times. And I hear that as far as requests. So I'd say that would be my biggest goal. But I want to have it be part of the growth. But I see where we started and see where we're at now. And it's been a lot of growth. So I'm happy with where we're at. And I I feel like we're meeting the community with all ages. And I was reflecting yesterday, in the past week, I've had two sets of grandchildren coming in teaching their grandparents how to knit and crochet. And I love that that's almost the tables turning, because in this that was at H&H too when we were talking about this next generation and a younger generation. And it's giving me goosebumps. But one of them, they were in from DC and she'd been to the shop before. And this time she came back from DC and brought her grandmother. And she said, well, I'm here. I want to teach my grandmother how to crochet because I think it would be really good for her mental health. And I absolutely adore that, because I think the stereotype of, oh, it's for older people and it's being passed down through generations, but I'm seeing it being passed up through generations.
Right.
Um, so I have 8-year-old walking in and saying there's a yarn shop in my neighborhood, and I speak at the local schools, um and I see that stigma being kind of taken away, saying it helps me focus, it helps me with my anxiety, it helped like seeing that side because it does. We all know it does. So having those conversations and people coming in and tearing up and saying how much this has helped them through hard times. Um, I really, that's something I'm really happy about.
Well, another thing that you've been very actively participating in is different community events. And one that I've heard about was when you had a bunch of yarn trucks next to your store. So tell me a little bit about that one, because I know another guest of my channel was participant in that. But like, tell me in general about that event and others that you create for the community.
Right, you had Yarn Adventure Truck,
Yeah,
correct?
they were on my channel.
Yeah, we were just meant to have this happen. So Katie and Dean, how did we meet? Again, the community is one of those where you just have all these connections. We might have met through Indigo Guinea, who is a local dyer who also has a yarn truck, and she's the one who does a lot of our custom colorways. Um, when given the creativity I have to use sometimes for the space, to me, like bringing the yarn in. So doing trunk shows, having yarn trucks. And last year, it was the Sunday after H&H. I thought, oh, let's do a yarn fest. And probably not the best timing to have it this Sunday right after H&H. We have a park across the street from the shop. So we had all the tents, we had a fiber fest, and I was exhausted. So this year I'm like, let's do it before H&H and have trucks outside of the shop. And it went so well. And so the race here in town is Indianapolis 500. So we put a spin on it and called the Indy 500. And it was a gorgeous day. Everybody, we put the chairs outside again. You could open stitch and had Yarn Adventure Truck and Indigo here. But I think we have an event about once a month, um, and giving people that opportunity to come and know that there'll be something new in addition to what's at the shop, and giving them a chance to support other people and discover new yarn. And At least with Katie and Dean and Lindsay, a lot of people know them, so they enjoy meeting them too, especially if they can't make it to some of the other festivals.
Right. Well, you keep on saying open stitch, and I love that because that was part of the conversation at H&H about the inclusivity of crafts. They always talk about inclusivity in different people, but not often mention the inclusivity in crafts. And there was somebody who was saying, like, putting crocheters are welcome is the same as putting women are welcome on the bars, right? Windows. So tell me a little bit about how you go about making other crafters and not just knitters feel welcome and included in your store.
So when you were talking about feeling welcome at a local yarn shop, we make it a point to have crochet samples out, and I try to have as many crochet samples as knit samples. When crocheters come to the store, they often will say, thank you. Thank you for having crochet samples, because I think they don't always see that.
Mm.
Um, and trying to have a variety of samples as well. Most of our classes focus more on the beginner to intermediate, but we have the samples out of, actually, it's behind me, like a beginner bandana that's crochet, same as knitting. I mean, there's a lot of the beginner options. Um, and I think just to me, I use the analogy that it's ingredients, right? Like we all use the same ingredients. Some people bake, some people cook. And when people say, well, which one should I do? I'm like, try both. And some people do both incredibly well. So I don't see it as, yeah, it's surprising to me when it's a knit store because it's yarn. So I try to Do I crochet well? Not really. Uh, I'm working on it. But I think knitting is just my comfort zone. So I tend to go back to knitting. I can I can do basic crochet and it's something I would like to work on, but it's that matter of finding the time to work on it. But then we have crochet instructor and she's fantastic. So she's actually doing a class later today. And I think people are happy to find crochet classes where they can come and crochet. And then a lot of classes you can do with both knitting and crochet. So I'm having a Ravelry class soon, and that's
Right.
bringing everybody together.
Well, when you go to place like H&H, and that's like a craft trade show, so there is fabrics, there is quilting, there is embroidery, there is all kinds of different things. And I was actually walking from place to place, finding like super cool kits, like this one by Taft,
I
where
saw that
I
one.
crochet, and I absolutely love this duck. It's like in this white and blue colors. So I got that one. And also like I saw this needlepoint kit. So that looks interesting. And I used to do some cross stitching like ages ago. So I was like, oh, I want to try that. So like, did you discover any interesting items for your store that you wanted to bring like as an extra thing, not just yarn?
I did not honestly make it over to the fabric side very often because there was so much to see on the yarn side. And I don't even think I saw everything on the yarn side. I'm watching highlights. I'm like, I don't even
Right.
think
It
I
was
saw
hard. It
everything.
was such a huge show. There was 500, over 550 vendors this year. It grew actually 30% or so from last year. And it was very overwhelming, like as far as how many different vendors were there and how many products were there. So I actually love watching other people's recap because I see what I missed. And I was pretty thorough, like going through all the booth and trying to get the like highlights of all the products. And I see that I missed so much.
I agree. I was like, where was that? I felt like I did a lot of walking and I still missed some things. I also did a lot of classes. So, given that my background is not business, I try to take advantage of when there's classes being offered, but a lot of that was during showtime. And so it's like you want to be at all the places at the same time. But that was helpful to attend some of the classes.
Well,
Um,
talk to me a little bit about the business classes because I participated in Creators Summit, but I never taken business classes. So how is that run?
so it's been they have a variety of topics that you can choose from, and you can decide kind of what different emphasis you want, and they're taught by different people. Some of them are industry specific, some of them are outside of the industry. So one of the classes I took was about merchandising and how to merchandise a table. So how do you arrange things in four different ways to arrange a table, which is harder than one thinks.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it looks a little chaotic. So, um, they were all very practical and things that you could go into your store and do the next week with things that you already had that you didn't need to buy, which is again all those kind of practical tips of how to use what you have, which was nice. The year before, I took a class, um, sorry, that's a store phone, that was about PR. And I use those tips all the time on how to pitch yourself basically to local news stations and talk about what you're doing. And a lot of the people on the audience were like, well, what would the local news want to do with a local yarn store or a local fabric store? But I found it's local, right? It's a lot of the news stations like to have shops and feature local businesses. So that was really helpful for me to go to those sessions and just again learn some tips that I didn't know before.
Well, there were also a lot of networking events, and I know you came to my meetup for Fiberchats, but there was also like Patty Lyon was doing a networking event for store owners and designers and teachers to see how they can better collaborate. Did you find any of the networking events enlightening.
I love the Fiberchats one. That was fantastic. And yes, I think connecting with different people. So whether that's another local yarn shop owner that's might be more seasoned or that's new and seeing what they're doing as well. The designers and asking if they'd be interested in collaborating. I feel like there were so many conversations that were had, but it's at those moments, at those round tables, because when everybody's walking the floor, it's all shiny objects. A lot of us are distracted. Um, and so I think taking advantage of those networking events were really helpful.
Well, when you think about your store, do you think of it as just a local yarn store, a destination store, or like an international place to buy online? What's your vision for your store?
We do have quite a few international customers come even in person. Um, Race weekend was a good example of that, just because I feel like a lot of people were in town. And so that never fails to surprise me. I'm like, wait, you came from where? When we have people from Denmark, I'm like, so do people really make the Sophie scarf? Oh,
But
yes, they do.
do they?
Um, yeah, but the website part, the online part, people had said that's basically like running a second store. And I do all of the website support, and it's a lot of updating inventory, making sure when somebody buys that you're also pulling it from the shelf during store hours. I think that's something that comes with growth, and that's another step that I could work on. But right now, that face to face and being part of the community is where I started, and it's been a focus. And I think as I grow, I can work on the website portion.
Are there any upcoming events that's going to happen in the store? What are you doing for Knit and Public Day?
I was going to say that's the big one, but we're calling it Knit and Crochet in Public Day, just changing it around. So last year we tend to partner with the other businesses in the area. There's an ice cream parlor and a coffee shop, so I'm sure we'll do some, and a bookstore. Um, have beverages and maybe ice cream and things outside as far as collaboration with the other businesses for that day. That's also Pride Day. So we will definitely do something to celebrate Pride on that same day. And then there's a Heartland Yarn Crawl. So it features 85 yarn shops
Wow,
in the
that's a
area.
big one, huh?
It's a really big one, and that's going on in July and August. And it's Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, and Kentucky. So we should have those passports maybe next week. And a lot of people use them as a travel guide because in the Midwest, people tend to travel those areas in the summer anyway. So it's nice to use as a travel guide before the crawl. And then during the crawl, they get a lot of really nice prizes from a lot of the bigger companies as well.
That sounds so exciting. I might have to rethink my summer.
That would be great. Love to see you.
I would love to come one day and see your store in person because it sounds like a great community, and I already know some people there, so that helps.
Yes.
I really wish you a lot of success with this store. And there is very few store owners that like talk, and I feel like we immediately friends. You are definitely one of them. So I'm
Oh,
very
thank
happy to
you.
meet you at H&H and get to know you a little bit better over this interview.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ali.